Yo, yo, yo. Welcome to everybody to the Real Deal podcast. So, today we'll be having the reaction or an analysis of Real Madrid against Rayo Vallecano. Today I'm joined by Talib. So, how are you doing, man?
Pretty good, Loconte. How are you?
Yeah, all good. I guess before the game. Can say the same after. For
Yeah,
people that are listening to us, guys, if you're on YouTube, subscribe, like, comment, tell your friends about it. We're also on Spotify and Apple Podcasts if you just really want to listen to us. But with all of that being said, I know that you guys are tired from this. Let's get actually into discussing the game. So, Talib, one of the things that stood out was the fact that Javi Alonso reverted back into Brahim Diaz starting as a right winger. Like, that was one of the biggest things, takeaways from the starting 11. And of course, no Trent to be trusted on that side. Do you think that Trent thing is a physical thing where he hasn't recovered yet? Like, is that your opinion?
yeah. No, I just feel in this game when you're coming back to Vallecos, the last three games we have drawn twice and lost one, right? So coming from a brutal Liverpool game to a stadium that has 15,000 fans but very close to the pitch, this is always going to be a tough game, and I don't think Trent would have been. If you put Trent into this is something a little bit of a mini Anfield territory where you have Rayo Vallecano that is pressing. I think Trent would have been the right fit for this game. Even when he came in at the end of the game, he had some decent touches, but I don't think he was ready. But again, we don't know, right? If we don't know what could have been if Trent had played from the beginning. So that's again, we trust Xabi Alonso for that.
Yep. I would definitely agree with that stance as well. Like here we can see other charts. Of course, it's like it's a very even game for the most part, with Rayo Vallecano kind of showing more like the higher highs, I guess, or and Real Madrid kind of keeping like a more
Because
stable
I
or
think,
conservative
yeah.
with their approach. Um, I thought that the team lacked aggression in my eyes. Is that something that you would also say, that the team just wasn't aggressive enough against a man-to-man press, especially coming after the game at Anfield?
Yeah, I think the team looked a little bit tired. So Rayo Vallecano players, coming here again, very high intensive game, right? They were pressing right from the beginning. They were just not allowing Madrid to play their game. And again, a little bit of lack of energy. I wouldn't say like very poor intensity from Real Madrid players, but I think it just showed on the pitch that when you have an opponent that is pressing higher, more faster than you, you need to go a couple of years ahead to beat that press, especially. And I felt that there was not enough running between lines from the players. So how do you beat a very high pressing team, right? You try to get players forward, you try to beat the lines, and I think overall they were they tried. Real Madrid tried a bit, but it just didn't work. It was more of a boxing match in the middle of the pitch without anything happening, right? So if you look at some of those games from last year, I feel a little bit similar to that, where there's not a whole lot of productivity end game as a result.
Yes. This game technically marked our fifth game that we don't beat Rayo at Vallecas. So it's kind of like an ongoing thing, an ongoing process. It's not really a new thing for us to drop points on this stadium. But today has a little bit of a different feeling because it's a bounce back game where you expect. But I would generally agree with the consensus that the players felt a little bit more exhausted and they couldn't do everything that was supposed to be done against a team that was most certainly going to go on that on that man-to-man press and just suffocate the spaces and not let us really breathe a lot. One of my main takeaways that has been for a while now on these post-game shows has been the fact that Valverde as a right back is a little bit conservative. We know that he went off with an injury due to how much he runs. He's very good at stopping players from entries on that right hand side, but I feel that his support to somebody like Brahim, who really needs, was a bit lacking, especially on the sequences where we were counter pressing and we needed players a little bit higher up the field.
Yeah. So again, when you have a little bit of something missing in the midfield, you had Kamavinga and Jude slightly in front of them, right? And your Arda dropping deep. You just felt that there was too much of a midfield play. You didn't have, yeah, like you said, Valverde didn't push enough. Mbappe not tracking back enough to get the ball. I think he was too isolated up front. So there was a little bit of synergy missing, connection missing. Pretty much everybody in the midfield. Kamavinga, when he gets the ball, you don't have anybody making those runs to the front, and he didn't move that much vertically. So you're again missing that ball moving player in the midfield. So how do you beat that, right? So when you have Carreras, I think had a decent game, even though there was a little bit of slip ups in defense, but he was still making those runs forward, connecting with Winnie. Again, yeah, but Valverde on the right side, we didn't see much happening on the right side, right? So again, I think there were a lot of bits and pieces of this game that could have been better. Intensity, better pressing, better counter pressing, keeping the ball more, and again, individual, a little bit lacking in terms of individual performances from everyone. What do you think?
Yes, I would agree with that. Like the game felt a bit lacking, and it's interesting how the film stacks up. For example, like Rayo immediately tried to use Rachu behind Vinicius, but actually for the first 30 or something minutes, Vinicius was doing a pretty good job at closing that line down, unless he was being dragged by a midfielder, where Vinicius kind of deems of, okay, I have to cut the midfielder off rather than the fullback, which leads to your Carreras point, where sometimes he was double teamed. One noticeable thing also with this game would be the fact that the way how Dean Howson and Carreras work as a pairing is just much better than any pairing that we have off the left, especially when Carreras is double teamed. Howson does a pretty good job at giving him help and supporting him throughout the process, which something is that we lacked on second half. I'm not taking away anything from Militao's qualities, but Militao is a much rather, when I get in front, more vertical type of defender, while Hausen just seems to kind of react at the moment. Of course, he got the yellow card,
Yeah.
which is a big problem. The problems that we even spoke, Thibaut spoke after the Liverpool game with unnecessary fouls, continued on this game. To your point again, too much fatigue, felt that players are really tired, but also a lot of question marks regarding the game plan on this game.
Yeah, I think when you have a back, two central backs of Asensio and Dean, right? You're missing that Militao presence of that calmness in at the back. So I felt that when you have players pushing up, Dean had to do like a last straw defending, and that's when he kind of gets those fouls, right? He could have pretty much he did. I think there was that first foul that he should have gotten a yellow card, and then he ended up getting a yellow card later on. But you just felt that Rayo pressing and getting players forward very quickly. That our midfield was getting bypassed. Like, how many times you saw Rayo coming down from the wing side and there was nobody there? There was Dean as kind of a last man standing. I think there was too much pressure on him. But I think Militao's presence at the back was missed a little bit in this game. Yeah, so but I agree with you. Dean was okay, but I think there was again everything overall was missing in this game. That's my point of view.
Yeah, for the most part. It's a very hard game to digest because we feel that a lot happened, yet nothing happened. Nothing like this is the first game of the season where Mbappe is kept with one shot. Vinicius again is being used as an offensive engine, but without a right wing, it's pretty hard to constantly facilitate those Vinicius transitions, Vinicius-led transitions, because the runs are coming very slowly. The team is way too deep at times. And Vini also is rushing his plays a little bit, which means he runs into traffic of 2 to 3 players with no way out. And that was kind of like a theme for the whole 90 minutes. The decision making on this team was questioned and currently is gonna be questioned. But I saw something that was brought up. Arda Güler being like a minus player when Madrid are counter-pressing and losing the ball due to his physicality. We saw
Yeah.
that be more prevalent against Liverpool. But what are we making of it on this game? Like, is he that big of a weakness when somebody like Franco Massantuano is not giving his energy of the right? So Arda Güler is a little bit more exposed on those situations.
I just felt that he was a bit slow in this game. When you have Brahim, I don't know where Brahim fits in this game. He had some, he was pressing, but he just wasn't providing much from the right hand side. So when you have Arda dropping to the little bit forward, he was getting muscled pretty much by the Rayo midfield and the defenders. And there was a couple of touches. I felt that he had some nice, quick technical skills in the middle, but he was just, his first touch is good, and then he gets beaten in terms of pace, right? And we also saw that at the end, he had that good run at the end in the box, but before that, it's just that Rayo was quicker in everything that in this game, right? And Arda was, even though he was dropping back to get the ball, but he was just not able to. There was no through pass, there was no run ups by anyone, there was no long balls going into the box except for one with Jude. So I think Arda was pretty much subdued in this game. He couldn't do what he should be doing, and again, his lack of pace was a little bit of a factor in my. It's what I think, and Rayo was just better in every aspect, taking him down.
Yeah, more like exposed on the situation, which I would agree with that assessment as well. Moving on into the midfield, and I want to say that for all the slack that we have given, today was an obvious day of us missing Chouameni, or at least his proactivity in the middle. We just couldn't win the ball back as quickly as possible, like the way how we used to. I think that he really leads the team pretty well on that regard, despite some of the sloppiness that he's shown on the ball. Today, his presence was fairly missed. Camavinga did a good overall job, I want to say, as a midfielder before he got the right wing shift again. But he just doesn't play the same way how Chouameni likes to play, not as tactically oriented or disciplined as Chouameni would be.
Yeah, I think I would have liked Kamavinga to be a little bit more play as a six, and then Arda push a little bit forward. I saw the opposite, Kamavinga moving forward, Arda dropping back to get the ball. So then you saw that Kamavinga was not being that vertical, in my opinion, not able to pass the ball quickly enough to some of the. If that could have been done, I think some of the players could have made those runs in the middle. But I saw little bit of that missing. So if Chouameni was there in the middle, then you would have seen Chouameni staying at the back, and then you have Arda and probably somebody else pushing in the forward, right? So that combination did not work, in my opinion. I think Kamavinga could have done a better job, and I think he needs to be, how do you say, he needs to be connected well with the players, right? And in terms of vertically moving the ball, and that just didn't happen. I saw a lot of wing play from the left hand side. Again, right hand side was pretty much zero, in my opinion, in this game. And there should have been much more wing play. When you have Rayo pressing so much, how do you beat that press? You go more on the wings and try to put in balls, right? I just felt that overall that was missing also. So it was a lot of small things that didn't happen in the game that Madrid couldn't really take advantage.
Yeah, I almost certainly agree with that, but again, it goes back to the Brahim decision. I don't think this is more like a Brahim himself performance as a player, but rather his, well, genetics and the fact that he's not athletic enough to be able to handle the right flank, and add that to what we mentioned before with Valverde being a little bit more conservative, or the plan itself being a little bit more conservative. Itself just makes things a lot harder, especially against a team that's really well coached. Like, it's not your everyday team. It's not a team that's gonna sit back and try to clear the ball and give you all the territorial advantages that you want. It's a team that's gonna come there and try to fight for everything and every ball, which is something that we saw today. Sloppiness simply just cannot happen in such games. But we have to take into account the coaching decision. If the Anfield players, which pretty much they started outside of Brahim for Chouamani because that was a must, if the team is exhausted and they simply are not able to follow the instructions that the coach gives them, isn't that the cue where you go like, okay, we saw a heavy rotation team to start the season. A lot of players were tried, a lot of positions, a style that really did fit. We saw a lot of shape shifting from Alonso, but seems that as the time went on, he seems more hell bent on this
Mm.
idea now that this is how he wants the team. He wants
Right.
Arda
Yeah.
more to be on every phase of the play, and I'm not sure if he can handle all of these, especially in games like today. For if you go against Mallorca, I think he would have been fine, but today against Rayo, I think he would have
I think we've lost Loconte.
sorry.
Yeah, oh, good, good. You just got cut off.
Yeah. The internet somehow because it's raining. Yeah, great.
Right.
Thanks, Jay.
Yeah.
Um, if you had to pick like a change into the starting 11, just one, you have to make one change. What would you make?
I would have changed something in terms of tactics in this game, right? So it wasn't working. Uh, we had what, 0.6 xg, or Rayo had a bigger xg than us, right? So
Yes.
there wasn't really much we were doing. So how you have to change something around, just instead of changing the player to player, you have to change the tactics. I would have seen Gonzalo come in, or somebody who can get the ball in the box, who can receive the ball in the box, and maybe try to pack in a little bit more in the midfield. Take Brahim out, go for a 4-4-2, and then let Mbappe drop back a little bit, and then let's see what you can do in terms of with a striker that is somewhat fixed outside the box or inside the box, right? I would have tried something different. Just try to be more compact. Players, the four midfielders in the middle, be compact, move between the lines, do some layovers, and then you have either Gonzalo, because there was nothing happening in this game, really, right? You were just trying, and then balls were a lot of turnovers in this game. I just felt that Zabi could have changed the tactics a little bit instead of just changing the players.
Yeah. I mean, that's a fair assessment, but there was a clear need for a change. Another notable thing from the game that came out there was the fact that Jude Bellingham was like the player that was getting us out quite a bit on the first half, like 3 times. He's man to man pressed. He should be your glue to beat a man to man press, but somehow we just failing to find him. The team is just doesn't seem to be constructed well enough to give Jude Bellingham more of the ball, like see more of those dribbles or passes, or go a little bit more by his flow. Like we always will revert to the previous seasons, but often against such teams, while maybe not always we got a result, we would revert a lot back to Jude, and the team would have a different outlook completely. And felt that today just was not something on Alonso's plan. It felt more like Judy's piece of the puzzle rather than being sometimes the key to putting that puzzle all together. This probably my biggest takeaway from the game would be involve Jude more, and that
Yeah.
needs work.
Right. So Lakanda, let me ask you something. Why do we
Yeah,
struggle against pressing teams, right? We saw that a lot last season with PSG, with Arsenal, with Liverpool last season, this season with Liverpool again. Barca against in the El Clasico, Barca, even though they pressed, we were quicker. We played. Remember, we played at the Bernabeu, right? When we play at the Bernabeu, we are a tough team to beat. But when we go away to these games, who teams that press well, uh, and then they become compact, they have a good formation at the back. We tend to struggle. So I think again, Zabi, I thought he was going to change something. Again, we are going back to last season, and we saw that against Liverpool. We were completely dominated in Liverpool. We just couldn't get the passing right because the pressing was so intense by Liverpool, and they were pressing at a very high part of the pitch, right? So again, we were struggling to get the ball back from the back. Build up phase was not working. Again, I saw that a little bit in this game. Rayo was pressing, but they are not Liverpool, so they had their weaknesses in terms of players, but they had more energy, and and I think again we are struggling. Real Madrid is struggling to get out of that press, right? And I just want to know, what do you think? How do you get out of it, right? In terms of formation and tactics. Yeah, you mentioned Jude being a little bit of an outlet on that, but you need other players to complement Jude also, right? You can't have one person pressing and then Jude runs with the ball. There's nobody else that he can pass to. And I saw I saw passing was a little bit off in terms for some of the players. It wasn't crisp enough. It wasn't reaching the players' legs. And I just want to get your opinion on how do you get out of this from last year and again this year, right?
Yeah.
And we're going
I
to face
mean,
that
the thing
again.
with us is the fact that high pressing teams or very low blocks can just really disrupt us. It's on the both ends because we saw Liverpool use that and we saw today Rayo use the exact same formula. And it's not a new formula for us to struggle against it.
Yeah.
This is where you kind of call coaching into really the details of the coaching into question because it seems that Alonso, to counter that, wants to accelerate the play as quickly as possible, hence using Vinicius as an offensive engine. But that comes with quite a few problems. First is the fact that our team has tendencies to stay very low during the build-up phase.
Right.
We are one of the weakest running behind teams in La Liga currently. Those are the numbers that we are just going. I think 17th or 16th, something like that. But the numbers of runs in behind are very low. A run behind is not being made. Therefore, a defense is not being cautious enough so they can push players. Pitch is only so big, so the players have to work in very small spaces in order to get out. And that's one of the problems that we're having and one of the issues that Arda by himself is facing. He's not really the most physical player, so he's going to need a little bit more time to rotate, to get in, or to play the pass. He's not going to be a Jude Bellingham who can just shrug off a defender and get past him. So that's why I call into question why not involve Jude a little bit more and maybe let Arda be that guy that was going to facilitate the final third play. And also now we're noticing that teams have caught up with the Arda Mbappe looks that we used to get at the beginning of the season, where then just they are just trapping Arda very deep, and there's nothing tactically to be done, being done there to change that. Normally, as a coach, you would probably want to go into a different direction. If we go back to Xabi Alonso's Bayer Leverkusen, in this case, that would mean that they are very physical, very hectic team, and they just don't let teams breathe, which is not this team clearly.
Yeah.
But sometimes he has to revert to that, which to me is why isn't Endrick having a bigger look? Franco Mastantuono for me immediately made sense. It didn't matter the time, the reps, because him as a profile did fit going by Alonso's Leverkusen. But Endrick is not all that different when it comes to tenacity, reading of the space, jumping on it. While Endrick might have had way less football played throughout the last 6 to 7 months, I still think that normally in circumstances you go talent over everything, and Alonso is just too rigid with that decision making. One of the midfielders is probably going to have to drop if we're going to change this, and you're going to need to attack the space and be a little bit better at picking players out from deep areas. That's where Carreras, Dinhausen, Militao, and Trent Alexander-Arnold are going to have to excel, step up, do all of that. It's going to sound bad, but Thibaut being bad with the ball doesn't help because that just kind of clogs one of our options because teams just know that, okay, if he doesn't have a clear-cut option, he's just going to hoof it. You don't have a target man out there, so you're kind of just looking to, okay, can I hoof it to the point where I can win second balls? And if you're not winning second balls, then you're in danger. So generally, it needs a reshuffle, not a big one, but Alonso probably will go back to what he did prior to the El Clasico game as a blueprint, if we really want to call it that.
Yeah, so even Dean on the ball wasn't that good, right? Even at Liverpool game and in today's game, we just saw that he struggled to get the ball forward. It's just that maybe Rayo players were pressing high and a little bit like Liverpool, right? So when you have Courtois not able to distribute the ball the way it should be, you have everybody struggling. Asensio is not a great passer of the ball. Somebody has to drop in quite a bit to get the ball from Asensio or Dean in today's game. So I thought that kind of limited in Real Madrid moving forward at a smooth level, right? So again, as soon as Arda drops back to get the ball, there's a Rayo player immediately pressing him, right? And then there was a disconnect between him and Jude at the front. I thought there wasn't players close enough. So again, overall, I thought we should have done something differently to beat Rayo's press, and that
Yes.
energy that Rayo brings in. We some things that we should have tried a little bit in the middle of the park would have helped.
If the idea is to trap a team when they're pressing us, which I think that Alonso started with that, but slowly differed from a setup that is of that kind, you need players that are quicker at making the decisions, quicker at moving into positions, quicker at rotating the roles. And this team currently just doesn't have that. Even with Tchouaméni on a pitch, the rotations are just very slow. As you said, Arda gets trapped a lot, gets put into an uncomfortable positions, and he has to make a way out of there. Those are the things that can be sorted via coaching. Those are profiling issues on top of everything else. And just generally feels that Alonso can do a better job than what he has currently done to deal with the pressing. Not overall, because I still think it's the first draw of the season. He's had only other 2 losses, so he's sitting first in La Liga, very competitive on the Champions League. Other teams are going to drop points too along the way, so it's not end of the world, but it's not the best position to go into international break on a loss and a draw. I'll say that much because the pressure is going to keep on piling. Just the discussion that we're having, what is being done differently, what type of players should come in, all of these things are going to creep in into the media. A lot of questions are going to be asked, which is going to add even more pressure into Alonso's decision making going forward. Also to note, we don't come back to Bernabeu until December, so he's going to have to stick up with the away games and find solutions. Now there's a clear pattern how to play against us, it feels like, and where we're struggling. So how is Alonso actually going to fix this is a huge question into his tenure. Because if he gets out of this, then it feels that there's no way for him to be stopped as a coach. But if he continues with this management that hell bent on this idea, and I'm gonna keep on trying it until it starts working and those players learn it. Well, without a preseason, without anything, I don't think that sort of stubbornness can genuinely work. So that's something that we have to wait and see how he reacts.
Yeah, so now we're coming back from international break on November 23rd. We have Elche, Olympiacos, Girona, and Athletic, all away games, right? As you mentioned. So this is, I would say, some of them Elche games should be okay. The Olympiacos, we don't know what to expect. Girona can be tricky sometimes. But Athletic Bilbao, that's going to be a tough game, right? So we just hope that teams don't copy what they're seeing in the last 2 games, right? High press, intensity is always going to be there in these away games. But how does Xabi come out of this little bit of a dip that Real Madrid is facing, right? We got kind of bamboozled at Anfield, draw today with not a great performance. How do you change tactics? And I think if most of the players are getting called up, I just hope that he goes back a little bit to the drawing board and see how we can get out from this cusp, right? Because we're going to face tough teams in the Champions League again, right? So at away games, let's say in April, whatever, right? So
Yes.
if teams are going to follow the same blueprint, we just need to do something different, right? Yeah, Tchouaméni coming back. Hopefully Trent gets a little bit more of a playing time, gets the rest. I don't think he's going to be called up for the England matches yet. So I just hope players come back. We saw that Fede touching his hamstring. I just hope he's okay. I hope he stays back in this international break, But again, if we can get everybody back, or at least most of the team back, Zabi can work. I hope he can work something. We never had a preseason, right? So again, that's an issue. But I don't know if I'll complain just about that, because we saw the problems last season and we are seeing a little bit of the same thing this season, right? So I don't want to blame everything on not having a preseason. I just think that there's still work to be done in terms of facing, like the last podcast that you guys mentioned, we are not equivalent to the big teams yet. We are not a tier 1 team. We need to get there, and I think there is still work to be done when you have players that have the potential but are just not reaching that potential yet, right? Somebody like Arda had a good start to this season, but again, now we saw 2 games that he was kind of beaten to because of lack of space or whatever, right? So I think certain players need to step up, but again, tactics are not helping a little bit. So I just feel overall work to be done.
Yeah, it's a reality. Plenty of time for Alonso to fix all of this and maybe try different things as it goes along. There will be players coming back, as you mentioned. Trent is going to get a few more training sessions. That should be very good for him. He's one of the key pieces. I can't really judge anything without seeing this team with a right back on it. Yes, I'm not saying that Fede is not a good filler, but he's not necessarily a right back. And when he said I'm a midfielder, he actually meant that. I don't think he was complaining or saying that, hey, I don't want to play there. It was more like, well, I'm not naturally a right back. So we're having issues of that sort. You mentioned a few players being bad on the ball. For example, Dean Howson has made a couple of mistakes, but I think that his mistakes are mostly on the way how the team wants to receive the ball and recycle it. The timing is off. As I said, Alonso needs to be less rigid. I've said this on the preview of the game. We need the IQ of the players to show up a little bit more into it rather than trying to set teams to the same trap and try to keep doing the same thing. Maybe a bit more adventure was required, which was definitely missing from this game. So that's one thing to also keep in mind.
Yeah.
With all of that being said, to wrap this up, great. To wrap this one up,
I want to ask you one thing, Loconte.
Yeah.
Mbappe, right? We had 2 games where Mbappe has kind of been invisible. We saw a little bit of that in today's game. Towards the end, when Ceballos came in, I saw a little bit of Mbappe being more involved on the left-hand side. But before that, there was pretty much he was just staying up front, and he did get the ball when he came back. But I just felt that, again, like you're saying, that free movement within the front, players interchanging, trying to shift things around. I just felt that Mbappe was too static. Again, similar game to Liverpool. I just hope that things change around, right? Go give a little bit more freedom to the players, but again, be tactical. We need Mbappe back, right? We need the best of Mbappe. We saw that, right, in the first whatever games, right? And I just felt that he kind of dipped in terms of in terms of taking on players, running through players, doing his skills. He just became more static, and I just hope we come out of that.
Fatigue roles have changed a little bit. The attacking dynamics have switched a little bit. As I mentioned earlier, we're trying to utilize Vinicius a lot more than we previously were. All of these do play a role. While inherently, I don't think that it's a wrong call to try and play this way. The timing is completely off. It feels that at the moment, I'm not going to say there's going to be needed, but it feels like this setup needs like a year to actually get into something where the players learn their roles. So that's why I lean towards more fluidity, players into more close proximities. If we go back to what we would call the best 2 open play chances outside of the Arda and Valverde shots, outside of the box, would be Mbappe's shot and
that
the
was that
Vini
just went
shot, which
outside the
was
box.
saved.
Yeah.
Both of these come after the team is on close proximities. You always have decoy runners that are creating the space, and that way the team is utilizing it. Well, it shows promise. It's very far from being something done and something that we can really utilize in tough games like Liverpool or today. Liverpool or today were not really two different games. It's kind of like just a lesser quality
Right.
opponent, but the
Yeah.
outcome was relatively similar. Liverpool attacked us in the first half, just kind of saw where our weaknesses are, came on the second half really strong, scored that goal, and then just dropped back into a very low block. And they knew that we were not going to have answers for them. So Rayo kind of followed the same pathway, except that Rayo was more looking for the goal than Liverpool were at that time, but of course less threatening. But to
Yeah.
tie it up with Mbappe, I think that he's just having a physical breakdown, not fully, but you can see that he's more fatigued. His dribbling is not as smooth. His touches are very rough. You saw that when he was trying to cut in from the right, which is usually his bread and butter, where he hit Mendy, the defensive player of Rayo Vallecano. You just saw that Mbappe lacks that fluidity,
Yeah.
and his ability to generate shots just really was not there.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, yeah.
100%. Yeah. No, I just think that fatigue is again creeping in. We've played a lot of games already this season, right? So just hope that things get better once everybody's back on the international break. Going to the away games is not going to be easy again, right? So, and we hopefully we get Chouamini back, have a little bit more steel in the midfield. Trent kind of doing focused passing and a little bit moving forward better than Valverde. I think. I think Valverde does not. He has that. He does those runs, but I just feel that Trent's sharpness in terms of passing and connecting with Jude probably is missing in this game.
I think once we have a bit of a healthier right side, we can start to see a bit of more freed up Mbappe. Again, I would like to see more runs in behind from Mbappe and Vini, both of them, to allow even Jude's box crashing to be fully utilized. Because Jude sometimes is just crashing the box because he has to, and we're forcing those deep crosses into him rather than those actions having a meaningful intention behind them. So, with that, wrapping it up, to wrap up this episode, any really positive things that you could take away from the game?
I would say Winnie trying what Winnie always tries, but I would incline more on the defense. Dean and Asensio at the back, I thought they were pretty okay, even though Rayo had that one chance where I think it was Asensio missed that cross and Rayo just missed by an inch on the post. But other than that, I think these two, if we moving forward into April or Champions League, like we need center backs that are a little more polished, right? So when you have Dean and Asensio who are getting more playing time with Militao getting rested, right? So I think that's a positive I would take. Other than that, not much. I just felt that this was again a boxing match in the middle of the park without a knockout, right? So I just felt that there's not a lot to talk about in terms of a positive Madrid performance other than defense.
All things considered, very dire game, yes. I would agree with the defensive line. I would just like to add Jude Bellingham, 2 games in a row. The adversity doesn't matter. He's just really good at it. So Alonso is definitely going to have some time on a film room and to see the benefits of Jude against such man-to-man press and how he can get out. So there is a lot of ideation behind that. I still think that Jude should be higher usage player when we're playing teams that are going to press us, and maybe Arda can become a higher usage against low blocks, so that way Jude can be more freed of the ball. I think that in terms of the lineup, it can work. I just think the roles assigned currently just are not correct for the players. You can drop Jude deep a little bit into such circumstances and let him dribble it out sometimes, or get the ball forward, and then we go from there. So yeah, with that being said, thank you, Talib, again for coming here.
Thank you.
Thanks to everybody that's listened to us. Again, as I mentioned at the start, we're on Apple Podcasts, Spotify. Leave a rating for us there. 5 stars helps a lot. We can see your guys' support is really being appreciated. We're reading into the comments and we're trying to implement new things. More things are coming as we have announced, and we're trying to go with the flow. Most of the time, you'll see that we're going to drop something into our feed. So you guys make sure to give us feedback into everything so we can get even better and better, because that would be very much appreciated. Not the best result, but we'll be looking after the international break and see what the teams are. Meanwhile, stay subscribed because we'll have a lot more content coming after this one. Thanks to everybody for joining in, and we'll see you on the next one.